studying the 5,000-year leap, and we will be discussing pages 9 through 33 today. 9 is actually part 1, structuring a government with all power in the people. First of all, I want to introduce you to today's political spectrum by asking you that question. What is today's political spectrum? You've all heard of something on this side and something on this side. What is it? That's correct. The left and the right. What do you normally hear of being way over on the far left, as far as you can go? You hear this in political science classes, you hear this in journalism, you read this in the paper, way over on the far left, as far as you can go. Some kind of a brutal what? Some kind of a brutal, tyrannical government, which is known as the most brutal we know of, communism. Communism on the left, and what is on the right? Way over there on the far right, as far as you can go. Sometimes you'll hear it said, that guy is so far right, he's a what? Well, no, not exactly. Keep going. So far right. That guy's so far right, that's right, he's a fascist. Ever heard of that? Communism on the left, fascism on the right. And so I ask you, if that is our political spectrum of today, why is fascism identified on the right? When it really is a dictatorship, isn't it? Fascism, you remember Mussolini in World War II. He would say, I'm not going to take your property like Hitler did up in Germany. You can keep your property, we'll just tell you what to do with it. See, fascism is identified with property ownership, which is usually thought of to be on the right. So you get communism on the right, on the left, and fascism on the right. Where are you then in this spectrum? If that's the spectrum that we have today. Are you in the middle? What's in the middle? You've heard of this word, moderate. Are you a moderate? Don't call me a moderate. What's a moderate? Moderate seems to be the kind of a person that gets up in the morning and, let's see, which way the political winds are blowing today. That's the side I'm on. They might even send out a little survey and say, let's see how the people feel about this, and however they feel about this, that's your side. It's a moderate. Given the feeling that, you're not really extreme on anything, you're just kind of going with the flow here. Is that what you are? Not what I am. And where are you? I knew a fellow one time running for a public office. He said, he would always go around saying, I'm a little right of center. What's that supposed to mean? He didn't want to be identified as a moderate, which is just kind of standing in the middle of the road, not trying to be hit on either side, a little wishy-washy. Don't want to be that. I want to be a little bit to the right. Okay. I asked him one time, I said, you're a little closer to fascism than communism. And so we had a little discussion about political spectrums. I don't know about you, but this kind of a spectrum is really confusing. You don't know where you are. And sometimes people label people on this kind of a spectrum, conservative and liberal. You've heard those terms. And if you're a conservative, supposedly you're where? You're on the right. And if you're really conservative, you're where? You're way out on the right. You're way out on some tangent. You may be ultra-conservative. Then you have the liberals and the ultra-liberals. Well, personally, I think this spectrum was made to be confusing, and it actually goes back to the way Parliament was seated in some countries in Europe. But the founders had a much better way to measure government. And we're going to talk about the Founding Fathers' political spectrum. To me, it makes a whole lot more sense. They said, if you want to measure government, then you measure government the way you measure anything else. Let's say you have a yardstick, and on one end of the yardstick is 100% of whatever you're measuring. 100%. What is 100% government? What is that? That's tyranny. That's a tyrant. 100% God. There's a law for everything, and the tyrant makes the law. On the other end of the spectrum, or the other end of the yardstick, is zero. Zero government, zero law. What would that be? That's correct. That's anarchy. And the founders said, between those two ends, you can put every form of government that's ever existed in the earth, depending on the kind of control and the amount of control that the government exercises over the people. What do you think? That's a great way of studying government. Where is it on the political spectrum? The correct political spectrum between anarchy and tyranny. You can put everything between 0 and 100%. Isn't that interesting? Now, 100% law, sometimes that's called Roman civil law. There's a law for everything. We've given it a little more descriptive term. We call it ruler's law. Who makes the rule? Who makes the law under ruler's law? That's right, the ruler. And then the founders said, what we really want is a position, well, let me back up and say, at 0 over here, 0% is no law. So between ruler's law and no law, where are we going to be? See, this was the challenge of the founders. They said, where we want is just enough law to protect the people and not too much to oppress the people. A position on the political spectrum that would be balanced between too little and too much. That would be a position in government where the people themselves would consent to that position. Hence we call it people's law. Another term for it is English common law. It's the law which is common to all the people. And they accept to be guided, to be ruled by that law. That's people's law. And where is it? Is it over on some tangent? Is it close to anarchy? Is it close to tyranny? No. It's just enough, but not too much. Kind of an interesting position on the political spectrum. And that's really what the Founding Fathers were doing. And they had some countries at that time that were going through the gyrations that Washington said you always study when you study history. You find nations going like this. You remember the French Revolution. The French government was maybe not 100% tyranny, but it was over there, and the people got so fed up with it, what'd they do? They revolted, called the French Revolution. And you know what happened? They swung that thing clear over close to anarchy. And the history books say that the streets of Paris were running with blood. And they realized what? That was worse than under tyranny. So there was a little man standing over on the sideline. He said, you sign this contract and make me emperor, and I'll help you put things back together again. So they did, and he did, and swung that thing back over somewhere over here. Who was that? Napoleon. And that's what they said, that this pendulum is swinging. What we need to do, the founders said, is to stop that pendulum from swinging in a position on the spectrum where we have just enough government to protect the people in their rights, but not too much to oppress them. And once we find that position, Jefferson called it the middle point. We like to call it the balance center, because it's balanced between too little and too much. And once they found that point, they said, what we need to do is nail it down. We're going to put chains around it. Jefferson called it chains of the Constitution. And we're going to put checks and balances. We're going to do everything we can do to hold that in the balance center so that it won't move. And that's what they did in the Constitution. Brilliant, isn't it? It's the balance center of the true political spectrum. All right, now let's turn our